We are still working through various aspects of the meal, and please continue to do that. One of the things that we don't talk a lot about around here in our chapter is just how fortunate we are to have the people that we have and the kind of chapter we have. And that was reinforced to me several years ago when this unbelievably young woman came to our chapter and she said, well, our chapter in Hickory is just closed. And you may not know that the chapter in Johnson City is just closed. Wow. But one of the things that Mandy told me was that she had gone to Charlotte's chapter and our chapter and just loved our chapter because of how supportive we were to each other. How many times that we would help each other, even sometimes at a cost to ourselves. But Mandy Pierce then decided from Hickory to join our chapter, and very quickly a lot of us realized this is a real wonderful thing for our chapter. She has incredible leadership experience, and we need to get her involved. So she is now on our board of directors. She runs her own company, she owns her own company, and is a national speaker on a number of areas. I think she started as a grant writer but has morphed into a number of other things. She wrote her first book and is now finishing her second book, but she is going to be our speaker today, and you're in for a treat. If you could help me welcome Mandy Pierce.
So I have to say, I apologize ahead of time, my co-presenter is not with me today. Marie is a consultant for my company, and she is at home on mandatory bed rest from the doctor this morning. She's pregnant and has pulled a ligament, and she can't do anything. So I'm here presenting something that we normally present together, so please bear with me and give me a little grace. Additionally, I want to apologize to the members of AFP's board from last month for not being here because I got bad news on Tuesday and called Debbie and found out that Leo had cancer, and I just couldn't function. So I was like, there's no way I can be there and be present. So we have since seen an oncologist, and he is the love of my life, and all my marketing pictures have Leo in them. So he's doing much better, and we have got everything under control, had some surgery, and are doing holistic healing with him. He's a very happy dog right now, and he would be with me if he could too. So I am here to talk today about sharing impact, and I have learned with lots and lots of work in the nonprofit world and with lots of clients that I have that what has been in the past, the information that we typically see on annual reports, generosity reports, that report you send out at the beginning or end of every year to your constituents, is not your impact. It's the numbers of the dollars you raised or the individuals you served or the numbers of meals you provided, but it's not your impact. And it's become a conversation over the past several years amongst the fundraising world of how do we share what it actually is that we're doing with people that makes them either want to give us money and support what we're doing because they like the impact we're providing, or they have interest and they maybe want to become a volunteer or a participant in your organization in some way, whether that looks like a board member or they want to refer other donors to you, or, you know, there's lots of different ways people can become involved. And what we hope is that you're learning what your impact is, because sometimes it's really hard to put a quantitative value on it to share with other people. Sometimes it's a little more abstract. You know, we made people feel good. Well, how do you share that with other people? And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So there's the one that's missing. That would be Marie on the left. Oh, this was where I would usually say, and this is Marie. So if you have a question, please feel free to ask it as we go. I tend to talk kind of fast, so I try desperately to slow myself down, but how many people in here have ever been on prednisone for anything? Kind of jacks you up a little. So I'm on the end of that and found out yesterday I have poison ivy. So later today I'll be going to get some more prednisone, so I'm jacked up at the end of the week. So sorry. So bear with me. I am consciously trying to slow myself down. I had all kinds of issues today. All right, so what is impact? Well, our definition of impact at Funding for Good is having a strong effect on someone or something. So it's not like a concrete definition, it's what your idea of impact is. What are you doing in your organizations? So let me just go around the room. You can't say more than one sentence. Okay, I'm going to pick some random people. So, oh, so I just get like this big. I'm going to pick a few random people. I just want you to give me one example of what you consider impact at your nonprofit, because it's going to be different all across the board. Yes?
We give children self-confidence and build their public speaking skills.
Okay, outstanding. Yeah, I know, right?
We provide funding for uninsured women so that they get necessary medical tests.
Outstanding. Val, you're not with a nonprofit, but what kind of impact does your organization provide?
Well, we help our clients gain the funding they need to make impacts in their communities.
Okay, very good. Back table, middle. I'm sorry, I can't see your name tag from here.
Oh, our impact is showing students that they can achieve what they want to achieve with their lives. So it's in their results, not necessarily their test scores, but encouraging them. Kind of.
Okay. All right. Middle table. I don't know you and you're brand new, so hey, welcome to AFP.
Our impact was on 60,000 people that came to us when they were on their absolute last leg.
Wow.
Okay. All right. So I think sometimes when we start thinking about impact, this is actually a bigger conversation. Sometimes it involves staff members or board members or committee members, and sometimes it involves program staff talking with development staff, because we're not in the field and we're not necessarily working in those programs every day to see the impact, to know the stories that we need to share. So how do we figure that out? And why is reporting on impact so important? Well, there's a lot of different types of impact we can report on. Social impact, economic impact, programming impact, organizational impact. So there's a lot of different ways we can report it, but why is it important? Well, because it answers the question, so what? And that's what I tell folks all the time, like, why do you need me to give you money for what you're doing? Why does it matter? If you weren't doing it, what difference would there be? Would something bad happen? Would people not be served in a way that is important? And that's what we have to be able to tell people, that we want to support us. Maybe they understand the concept of what we do, but they don't understand the impact it has. So what difference does your program make? If your program didn't exist tomorrow, is there another program that would pick up the pieces and start providing those services? Do you know? Do you know the other organizations that are doing what you do and how they do them differently? And if you don't, then this is a piece that you need to educate yourself on. Sometimes I talk to clients and they think their program is the only one that does what they do. And it's not. But they haven't ever educated themselves on it. They just assume they're the only one. And that's how they're unique. But it's really not. So I also tell people, where's the next closest place doing what you're doing? I'll give you an example. I work with an organization in Morganton called the Alder Springs Senior Blind Committee. And it is a part of the North Carolina School for the Deaf at Morganton Foundation. It is a non-profit retirement community for individuals who are deaf, blind, or deaf-blind. It is the only non-profit community of its kind in the country. There are 11 others, but they're all for-profit, and the closest one is in Ohio. So Western North Carolina has a gigantic population of folks that are deaf and or blind or both, and we don't have a service for them in this area, specifically for them. So if I'm going to talk to a potential donor, it helps me to know that. We're having a huge impact on individuals here, but because we're a nonprofit and because we're offering a very unique community where people can come and live their culture, people from all over the world are coming here to live there. We have people from Canada, people from California, people from New Jersey, because they want that ability to live in their culture, to speak their language every day, all day, with residents who also speak their language. And so that is impactful, but if I didn't know all of that, and I didn't know all those other little tidbits of information, I couldn't share that with potential donors or potential people who want to get involved with the project. So I encourage you to know some of those things for you. How many people in here know Beth Brodowski? Heard of Beth Brodowski? Anybody? So Beth is a nonprofit marketing lady that I know from Pennsylvania. And she said this and contributed to my first book I wrote, and I said, Beth, that's great. Can I steal that? So I use it all the time. People don't want to fund your existence. They want to fund your impact, right? If you don't know what your impact is, you're only asking them to fund your existence. So you have to know this information to share it with them, or you're just saying, give me money to keep my doors open. Nobody wants to do that. Here's an example from how many people in here at your organizations have grant writing, even if you're not the one doing it. How many people write grants? Okay? So we do a lot of grant writing, and more foundations are asking for individual organizations to share their impact as part of the application process. And if you don't know what your impact is and you can't share it, there's a lot of applications you're not going to be eligible for. This is just one small example. Best Friends Animal Society has a Save Them All grant. This is taken right off of their application. Proposal projects must demonstrate a direct impact on saving lives and or leading to a reduction in shelter deaths. That's
cartoon dog.
right, I know. I love going online and finding those free images, you know, that you can put in your PowerPoints. Anyway, so this is just one small example of they want to know what your impact is. They don't want to know the number you served. They want to know the number you impacted, which could be a very different number. This is an example from Catawba Cooperative Christian Ministries, which is in Hickory, of the impact. This made a huge impact on me when I read it. It was a little bitty business card that they had on tables at restaurants. And it said, here's your chance to take a bite out of hunger. And on the back side of the card, it had this. By donating cash instead of food, this restaurant will stretch your contribution. Through Second Harvest Food Bank, we can turn $5.92 into $219.04 and a $4.32 donation into $116.54. Well, that's great, but that doesn't mean much to me because I don't know what it means. So then they went down and said, a donation of $5.92 allows us to purchase 37 jars of peanut butter. A donation of $4.32 allows us to purchase 27 boxes of cereal. How many people in here buy cereal? It's way more than that. By eating at this restaurant on Tuesday, February 17th, 10% of your meal is donated to CCM. I, as a donor, would have said, let me go to the grocery store, whether it's Aldi or Walmart or wherever, and let me buy some food and take it over. They need peanut butter and cereal. But after I read that, I'm like, here's my money. Go do what you need to do. Because you're going to be able to make my dollars go further. I don't have the relationship with Second Harvest Food Bank to do that for you. But you, by getting my cash, can do that. What is it going to be that you can tell a donor that will in turn get you what you want for your organization? Yes, you can use peanut butter and cereal, but to take the same amount of money they spent on that, the $40 or $50, you can do so much more. So how do you share that with a person in a way that encourages them and motivates them to give it to you, right? Does that make sense to everybody? A lot of times as nonprofits, we can leverage our nonprofit status and get a whole lot more than a very well-meaning donor can give to us. So if we ask them for the dollars and tell them why we're asking them for the dollars instead of the products, then we can go out and do more with it, okay? That's just one of many examples of impact that I want you to think about. There's a lot of different things that we can report on, and you don't need to report on them all, right? If I am involved with, I'm going to pick because they're here, Brother Wolf Animal Rescue. If I am going to be involved with them, it's possible that I have a specific reason, right? Maybe I have a passion for rescuing adult senior dogs. I don't need an email once a week that tells me about every single other program because that's why I'm involved and that's my impact. As an organization, they need to know that, and that's what they need to target with me. That's what they need to share with me. Yes, occasionally a newsletter's good with more information, but I don't need that every week. Positive and negative change, that's something you can report on. Increases or decreases, whether that's in service, dollars, numbers impacted, programs created, whatever it happens to be. Capacity, community partners. Maybe you have built community partnerships with some people who really give you credibility, and you want to be able to report on that. Third-party reporting. Because of the education that Brother Wolf came and provided to our shelter, we are now able to rescue 10% more dogs than we were 6 months ago. So we're reporting our success based on what someone else provided to us, third-party reporting. And then you have all the basics, the number you serve, the number you engage, the number you impact, all those are very different numbers. Measurable outcomes and demographics. I encourage you as an organization to evaluate what you need to be reporting before you create a bunch of templates and things that you're telling your staff to do and a bunch of extra work. Maybe some of that stuff you could report, but there's no real need to. Maybe you're tracking it and you can pull it out if you needed to at some point, but you don't need to be focusing your time and energy on it. And then how do you determine that? What are your donors asking for? What do your board members want to see? What are your grants requiring you to report, right? There's a bazillion statistics that any organization, for-profit or nonprofit, could be collecting. You don't need to be collecting all of it, right? And then once you've created what you need to report on, reevaluate it every 6 months, every year, because it's going to change as your donors change, as your programs change, as the people that are working with you change, as the grants that you're getting change. You're not going to necessarily need to be reporting. Maybe there's some new things you need to start collecting data on, right? So here's your little checklist. People like checklists. What should you evaluate? Well, you need to know who you're reporting to in order to know that. What are you reporting about? When does it have to be or need to be tracked? So is this something you need to track every time your program meets? Does it be once a month because you're doing federal and state grant writing and you're reporting back that time frame? Is it quarterly? Is it annually? Who's responsible for collecting the data? Is it you? Is it your ED? Is it a staff member, a program director? Who's the person doing it? And make sure they're aware that they're supposed to be doing it. Distinguish between useful data and busy work. Just talked about that. Reevaluate current data being collected and tracked for necessity. Just like everything else, whether it's a special event or a meeting that you hold every year, a lot of people will say, but we always track that. Well, that's great. Doesn't mean you always have to, right? So there needs to be some change, and I realize that change is hard, especially when we talk about the culture of a nonprofit, but there has to be a reason why you're doing it. Because if not, it is busy work. And you guys have too many important things to be doing every day to be focused on busy work. Consider things you might need to track for future funding, impact reporting, or to talk about a program or project. How many people in here have ever worked for an organization that was less than 5 years old? Okay. When an organization gets started, there's nothing really to report other than the needs assessment or the community need that caused the organization to be created in the first place. However, when you start, you need to know the things you need to track, so in 3 to 5 years, you qualify for funding. So you have the information and the data to share with potential donors. So you have something to share with the community about what your impact has been. So that's when you need to sit down and say, okay, what should we be tracking, and what are we going to do with that information, right? I encourage you, as you create new programs or projects at organizations that already exist, that you have that conversation as well. What should we be tracking for this? What are we hoping it's going to accomplish? So there's 3 definitions that a lot of times people get either confused about or never really knew the definition for in the first place. Service, engagement, and impact. And they're different. Service is the delivery of programs or goods, right? So it could be that you're coming and buying something from our organization. That's a service. I'm providing you with a good. Engagement is where you're interacting and are introducing an audience or an individual to an organization, mission, or cause without specific delivery of programs or goods. Think health fair or community fair. You're at a table, you're providing information, you're not necessarily providing a service, you're not necessarily creating impact, providing information, you're engaging with them. And then impact, having a strong effect on someone or something. I encourage you to make sure that you're reporting on what you're hoping to report. So if you're not wanting to report on engagement, make sure that what you're tracking is the impact. Then we have measurable outcomes. A lot of people are more familiar with this because we have to write them into grant applications. And they say, what are your measurable outcomes? What are your inputs? What are all those phrases they like to use? So that's number of people or animals or whatever served, number of visits, demographic breakdowns, which is different for every organization. Demographics is anything that you can differentiate a group by. Program results, increase, decrease in knowledge or awareness, a change in a behavior, achievement of a specific goal. So a lot of times, this stuff will come from your strategic plan. How many people in here work with an organization that has a strategic plan? For those of you who don't raise their hand and I'm not looking, you need one. Every organization needs one. It is, when I was a development director at the YMCA, my most important tool in my fundraising kit was my strategic plan. there was hardly anything I couldn't answer with a well-written strategic plan, right? Because if not, you go to talk to a donor and say, well, what are you hoping to do with this? Or where is this program going in the next 2 or 3 years? You're like, well, and you're speaking from yourself or things you've heard. You're not speaking from a plan that's been written and approved by the board and that the whole organization is moving forward with. Giving Tuesday, there's a lot of examples out there of great marketing pieces for all different kinds of nonprofit events. This is one that came to me via email this Giving Tuesday. And it struck me because it was telling me how, as a donor with my gift, what I could actually help them accomplish. So it was well written. You're going to use your impact and your impact statements for marketing. A lot of us are going to use it for social media. A lot of us are going to use it in print materials, maybe a story we're doing for the newspaper. But they need to be well written, just like your elevator speech and your conversations with individual donors. Every 40 seconds, someone dies from cardiovascular disease. And chances are, you know someone, a friend or family member, who's been among them. I don't. I still had impact from this. But this Giving Tuesday, please donate and help us reduce that number. Imagine saving 431 lives today through your donation. Because of supporters like you, we are on track to reduce the number of deaths from cardiovascular disease by 20% by 2020. It may be a child born with congenital heart disease, a grandfather who might not see the next holiday, a mother with a newborn because of a stroke. Through your support, we can continue to improve prevention, diagnose, and treatment and save those lives today. Imagine saving 431 lives today. When I was going to the Best Friends, how many people in here are familiar with Best Friends? Best Friends Animal Society, largest animal sanctuary in the country? Okay, look it up. They're huge. And I went to present at their national conference last year for the first time, and my company gave a grant away. And we did our first grant cycle. So we got applications for weeks and weeks before the event, and we were going through them. Well, on the application it said, please feel free to contact me if you have questions or whatever about the application. I didn't get any questions from anybody at all. My phone number was on there. And I get there and I had already decided in my mind that I did not want to fund spay-neuter. Okay? Have a huge passion for animal welfare and not exceptionally educated on all pieces of it. But I had already decided that's not what I want to fund. In my mind, I either wanted to fund a piece of equipment that would be able to be used for lots and lots of animals to save lives over years, or I wanted to provide one life-saving surgery for an animal that needed something right now that I could help give a life to, right? Because of my dog's story. And almost every grant that I got was for spay-neuter. And I was like, no. There were a couple for surgeries, 2 of which made it to the top of the list, and 1 for equipment that made it to the top of the list. The very last application I got, the day before the grant cycle closed, was for spay-neuter or food to feed street animals for a group in Texas, Dallas, Texas, called Duck Team 6. The way they presented it to me was by sharing the impact my dollars would have, which no other organization had done. By providing us with X number of dollars, we will be able to provide X number of spay-neuters through our clinic. But they didn't stop there, because that would have been like, no. They said, by providing those 5 spay-neuters, we're not only preventing those animals from having more, but we're preventing the 5 puppies that each one of them would have in the 5 litters they would have over their lifetime. So technically your donation will save X number of dogs from being born onto the street. And I was like, whoa, that's a pretty big impact. Wasn't a lot of money either. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then they said, we can purchase this many pounds of dry dog food, which will in turn provide X number of meals for street dogs in Dallas over the course of, I couldn't buy that much with what I was giving them, but again, they have a relationship with a distributor. And so immediately I called the girl that sent in the application. I was like, I need you to tell me a little bit more about this and this. She sent me all the information I needed, and that was the decision that was what I needed. Because they told me about the impact that my dollars would have. Not the services they would provide, because that would just stop with 5 spay-neuters, $100 a piece, whatever. Would have stopped with X number of pounds of food they could buy. They took it that step further. And that's what we as fundraisers need to do. Because we know in the field we're working in all the impact it has. The thing we take for granted is the people that have a passion for what we do know how much those dollars will do. They don't. You think they do because they're interested, but they don't. I had no idea that the spay neuter would do all of that. And obviously they changed my mind because I had decided at the beginning I didn't want to fund that. It is possible to change donors' minds about what they want to support. It is possible to get dollars for general operating, but you have to impart the wisdom to them of why it's necessary and why general operating dollars are needed. I could go into a whole soapbox about that. If you know the impact you have and your donor is passionate about the impact you provide, they won't have a problem with funding general ops. Because if you didn't exist and your doors weren't open and you didn't have the staff in there, you wouldn't be providing those programs and services. That's what you have to educate them on. They could give you $80,000 to run a $100,000 program, but if you don't have that other $20,000 to pay the rest of your staff and buy the supplies, the program will never happen. That's what they don't understand. So you have to share with them the impact the program's going to have, get them passionate about that, and then it won't matter what part they're serving as long as you're providing the program. Does that make sense? Any
Can I ask
questions?
a question?
Sure.
Yeah, you may be getting to this later, but
I don't
you know,
know.
so many blogs and everywhere you look, we're told it's all about telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
And the story usually winds up on your annual report or one story, which in essence shares the impact on
Hopefully.
one person.
Right.
All right. But every example you've used so far is more, is bigger.
Right.
There are an awful lot of numbers. Are you going to share about how to integrate stories into what you're saying?
So not specifically with an example, but I will tell you that once you know the impact you serve, you should also know the stories, the mission moments, if you will, at your organization and be able to pick the ones that most closely align with the donor you're talking to, if you're going to be having an in-person conversation, or the piece of marketing that's going out to whatever constituency you're talking to. You shouldn't tell the same story all the time. They should be real stories. Sometimes obviously you have to change names or whatever so people aren't identified, but the ultimate goal is that the story aligns with all of these impact measurements that you're collecting, right? So they could give me those statistics from Duck Team 6, but then they could also attach to that Molly, the pit bull 2-year-old that had 3 litters of puppy, was rescued and spayed and blah, blah, you know, whatever. You can associate something that's completely relevant in a story with that, but before you can create that story, you have to know the impact you've had.
Okay, good.
Does that make sense? I'm not here to talk about storytelling, that's a whole other day, but I could. But Alex is right, you know, you have to know this information first in order to generate those impactful, pull at the heartstrings stories. Because it's great to read a story, but if you don't know anything behind it and like, well, what else are they doing or what kind of impact does this have overall, the story doesn't matter so much. How many people in here give blood? Okay. How many people in here, okay, just Red Cross or Carolina's
Red
Blood
Cross.
Bank?
Red Cross.
Are you like married to the Red Cross or you just give because that's the one that's here?
Probably because they're the ones who set up the
Okay. So for me, I had always given through the Red Cross just because that's who got me the first time, I guess.
Yeah.
And when I moved to Hickory, we have a location for Carolina's Blood Center, which again didn't matter to me. They were just sticking me. But that's who had the most blood drives. So eventually I just went to one time and got some free movie tickets and I was like, yes, I'll be back. But I saw a thing on Facebook, yeah, a couple weeks ago about an organization in Europe that, you've probably seen it, the picture's like a blood bag that's shaped like a heart and there's a person standing beside it with a phone in their hand. They have started texting donors when their blood is used. Your blood was used to save a life in Britain today. That way you know the impact of your blood. You don't have to wonder, like, was it used in a surgery somewhere? Was it used in a reg? You know when it was used.
You know, the
It's
Red
like,
Cross
how could they
here
start
does
doing
that.
that here?
The Red Cross here does that. They send a letter and then they say that your blood went to
That's
some
awesome.
city to help.
Right, but no, this is immediate. Like, it's a text that says your blood was used today at
Oh, okay.
blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
So
okay.
yes, that's awesome as well.
It is.
If that service were available here and I had to choose between 2 organizations and one provided it and one didn't, I'd go to that one. Because I would love to know when my blood was being used, right? So that's a great way that organization is using the impact of a donor's gift. It's a very unique kind of gift. But to let them know the impact they had and how quickly they had it.
There's another blood organization now competing with the Red Cross, but I just can't bring myself to donate to them through them, because when I was an infant, my aunt, who didn't even have a driver's license, drove me from Madison County to Greenville, Tennessee to the hospital there, and they saved my life with a pint of blood, the Red Cross.
Nice. Right.
So
you have a direct connection.
I mean,
There you go.
that's real.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's a lot of people that give for a particular reason, and those are the other reasons. Fundraising is all about relationship building.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what type of fundraising you're doing. Grant writing is about relationship building, annual campaigns are about relationship building, special events, all of it. I encourage you, if you're a development officer, and some of you are going to be like, I have too many to learn. It just starts somewhere. You have to know why people are giving to you. If you don't know the reason why I'm giving, it's very hard for you to engage me and tell me the impact that I want to know about, right? You're just giving everybody generic information. So I encourage you, that's a great reason to get to know your donors individually so you can find out what they should be being told. These people want to know about this particular project. These people want to know about this program. And so like you, I wouldn't try to talk you out of giving to them. But for me, as a person who's not married to either one, the impact I would get from getting that text message for me would make me switch. It's not available where I live, but if it was, I would go. Charity Water. How many people are familiar with them? Go to their website. There's a ton of these. I just pulled one off. They tell you what their priority area is. And then they tell you what they're currently doing to fix it. So they give you the statistics. Disease from dirty water kill more people every year than all forms of violence, including war. That's your wow statement. 43% of those deaths are children under 5. Access to clean water and basic sanitation can save around 16,000 people every week.
Are they in Flint? Flint needs that.
And so then they go and they tell you, what are we doing to help fix that problem? Like, what are the dollars you give us? What are we doing with it? And they do that for each of their priority areas. How many people in here follow the Duke Endowment? Anybody get their letter this week that came out online? Their little newsletter? So they give you their three priority areas, and they tell you right now what they're doing in that area, what impact they're having. It's very clean, very simple, not complicated. Look it up. If you need it, call me, I'll forward it to you. But so that's a way they do it with their newsletters. And then they pick. How many people in here have specific priority areas or program areas for your nonprofit? You should be able to do that. You should be able to pick the impact you're having and share it with folks, whether it's digital communication, whether it's print letters, whether it's in person. And so I encourage you to begin compiling that so you can do it more effectively. These are from grants. So these are from very specific grants that have been written over the past year. And it just tells you what the impact is. We've already went over the first one, but I'll tell you the numbers. A female stray dog has 2 litters of approximately 6 puppies twice a year, which means she has 96 puppies over her lifetime. So if I spay 1, I'm saving 97 lives, hers and 96 more, right?
Right.
Well,
That's pretty impactful. Bridging the Gap is currently the only after-school program in the county that exists specifically to serve the 1,150 Hispanic students enrolled in our schools. The only program for after-school. Last year, elementary students in the Opening Doors program achieved an average increase of 10.53 points in reading skills and 8.35 points in math skills among students tracked. So for those of us in the education field, that's huge. Those are big numbers. Those are examples of impact that people used in grants. So there's lots of different places you guys are going to use impact. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Write it once, well, the first time, and use it in lots of different places. So let's put this into practice for a minute. Who has the time? Let's see. I know I'm not over by any means. Okay, 1:11. So we're going to take 4 minutes. You guys are going to get up, and I want you to share the impact your organization has with at least 3 other people in the room. So we're like speed dating with impact. And then we're going to step back down, and I'm going to ask you what was the one area of impact that most impressed you and why. I'm not going to ask you all, but I'm going to pick. So, are we ready? Let's do it. Timer, 4 minutes, go.
You 3.
Engaging piece of impact was, so let me start here at the front table. Anybody? Jen? Sure. Share with me something someone told you that was impactful that impressed you.
Erica from Asheville City Schools Foundation shared that they give teacher grants, which, though she didn't use this example, I'm going to, kind of has the exponential effect of the spay and neuter example where one teacher will impart the knowledge from whatever the grant has been to that group of students that year, and then the next year, and the next year, and the next year. They may move to a different school within the organization and be able to impart that with a different group of kids. So they're really having a very large impact, starting from just one person.
Wonderful. Hey, awesome. And now we all know. Okay, so.
Good job, Mary.
Your name, I'm sorry?
Jessica.
Jessica.
Constitute Kelly and her intern. And they provide technology to students in Guatemala to help them get better education and break the cycle of poverty.
Okay. Very cool.
Do you want me to go last?
Tell me.
You want me to go last?
No, tell me now.
Okay. So Leah, who's with Brother Wolf,
That's okay.
was sharing that I guess the government services pick up stray animals on the street, and if they don't have a place to go to, then they get killed because they don't have cats. Cats. We'll focus on cats. Feral cats. And so through no fault of their own, because they don't have a place to be returned to, they get killed. Except that now Brother Wolf, County Services calls them up and they get taken to Brother Wolf. So because of Brother Wolf's services, no feral cat has been killed in 2 years.
Wow. See, that's awesome impact that we wouldn't have known, right? Very cool. Okay, we're gonna have one more. Somebody from that table in the middle who has something amazing. Go ahead.
Art for Life over here. 9,500 students. That 9,500 children who have cancer or other diseases are able to not let that define them. Instead, they're able to identify as an artist or a musician and not let that negativity be the focus of their life. And so that means a lot to me.
Nice. So you said the name of the program's Art for Life?
Arts for Life, yeah.
Arts for Life. Okay. I used to do a fundraiser in Hickory for a group that was called Art for Life. And it was like at the art museum, and we did a fundraiser. It was pretty awesome. So I like the name of that. Okay. So I encourage you, if today you haven't, you didn't come in with the knowledge of what all of your impact is. You probably have it in your head, but you need to formulate it and create your messaging, that you want to share with people. There's a lot of different ways that you guys are going to share this information, and there's probably a ton more than what I have listed, but just a few. You need to have mission moments. Have mission moments with staff members, with board meetings, with organizations, and let people know about crazy cool things that are going on right now. Mission moments need to change as the organization grows, so don't tell the same one for 3 years in a row. What are your wow factor stats? Apparently the timer is done. And it's going to tell me that again if I don't cut it off. Okay. Wow factors. You need to be able to say what your wow factors are. There has to be something that you say that have that reaction to people that are like, wow, I know that, right? What is that going to be? What would it be for you? We get desensitized working in the fields we work in every day, because when you see something over and over and over, it becomes not a wow factor anymore. You have to take back a step and say, what was a wow factor when I started? Animal welfare has a high burnout rate, so there's a lot of things they get desensitized to that don't seem like wow factors to them anymore, unless it's that case of the, what was the dog in Charleston that was, had the tape? Okay, that was a wow factor, but stuff like that happens every day, right? So if you tell people too much, they get desensitized to it. So you have to determine what are your wow factors and what can you share on a regular basis, okay? I encourage you to figure out what yours are. What is the power of your dollar? So think back to the food example. What's the power of your dollar? And is the power of your dollar greater? Is the power of my dollar as a nonprofit greater? And be able to tell people that. How much does it cost to serve one homeless person a meal once a day, every day for a month? Anybody know? I don't. How much does it cost to provide shelter for someone who's homeless in a homeless shelter for one night? What's the actual cost? How much does it cost to provide an animal a place to stay at Brother Wolf for a month, for 30 days? What is the cost of that? Not just the cost of the actual facility they're in, but what is the overhead? What is the staff salary that goes into that in order to run it? What is the part of the electrical cost? What is the actual cost of what you do?
It's free of cost.
Yeah, it goes in there as a percentage. Encourage you to think about actual costs, Not just what's the lowest cost I can tell them so they'll let me pay for it, but what does it actually cost us to do it? Because that's what helps you pay for all your bills and keep you fully funded. Press releases, human interest stories, radio appearances, newsletters, and then your impact reports. I encourage you to think about renaming your impact reports generosity reports if you're going to be sharing them with the community, because it turns out that it really is the generosity of other people have allowed you to do this, to provide this impact. And then you have a way to go to folks and say, will you help us create this impact this year? Will you help us grow our impact? Will you help us whatever? Who has a question about any of that? Anybody learn anything new today? It's always my goal. Any questions at all? I think we might have a few minutes. And if not, then eat, mingle, be merry. You've got about 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Anybody got a question or whatever, you can email me. If you want a copy of the presentation, email me and I'll send it to you on a PDF. It was a really long one to try to print out. And there's another picture of Leo for all the dog lovers in the house.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to say that our June program is still being determined. So stay tuned and you'll find out what it is. And remember to sign up for PI. You can start doing that now. See you next month.
Very nice.